Alrighty folks, this is Jason with the Primal Outdoors channel, and today I'm really excited because I'm going to be doing the first major upgrade to the old shuttle bus that I bought that I do plan to renovate into a full-time living RV. And that is adding a tankless water heater to the bus. Now if you've ever taken a shower in a regular RV that had a water heater with a tank, you know you had to take that shower pretty quickly or you'd run out of hot water. And that's why I'm going with this FOGATTI tankless water heater, because I want to make sure as long as I have water in the tank of the van, I want to be able to take as long a shower as I would like. So that's going to be really nice. So what we're going to be doing is installing that into the bus today. Now there is a ton of work I still have to do to the bus, and since I've had it, I've realized I do have a few roof leaks that need to be repaired. That's not the end of the world because it is fiberglass and you can repair fiberglass pretty easily, but we are going to have to wait till summer when we have higher ambient temperatures. But I don't want to wait till summer until I can have a shower in this bus. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a temporary install today so we can get this thing up and running and I can start taking some showers when I'm here at the shop.
This is the FOGATTI InstaShower Ultra, their 10-liter RV tankless water heater. It is rated up to 66,000 BTUs and runs across a wide flow range, roughly half a gallon per minute, up to about 3.9 gallons per minute, which allows you to support normal RV use, including more than one fixture at a time, depending on conditions. Because it is tankless, it only heats water when you turn on the tap, instead of storing water and running it mid-shower. It also uses an internal mixing tank to smooth out temperature delivery at startup rather than hitting you with a hot-cold swing. On the exterior side, it is built with a more weather-resistant intake and exhaust layout, plus a DC fan intended to handle windy conditions and helps keep the burner stable. The unit mounts through a standard 15 by 15 inch exterior opening and comes with a remote controller that lets you set and monitor the exact temperature you want, so you're not wasting water trying to dial things in with the mixing valves.
Now I still have some things I'm going to have to figure out when it comes to the full layout of how I'm going to renovate this bus. But I did take some time this morning with some masking tape, and I went around and masked out certain areas of how I think I am going to want the bus to lay out. So back where you are is where the bed's going to be, and then where I am in this little square is where I plan to have my shower once it's completely built in. But for today, just so I have something I can start using, I'm just going to be using a camp shower that I picked up on Amazon. So one of the challenges I am going to face today is I am going to have to cut a hole in the bus somewhere to install this water heater. It does flush mount to the outside because it does burn propane in order to heat the water. Now, I don't want to just willy-nilly go cutting a hole somewhere in the bus and then find out later that I've decided I want to change things up and I no longer want the water heater there. So what I'm going to do is, this back door had a window here at one time apparently that somebody must have broke, and they just replaced it with this piece of wood. So I think this will be a great place for me to temporarily install the water heater. That way if I do change my mind later, it's not a big deal, because most likely I will either replace this window or I will seal it up another way, or I have even thought about just getting rid of the door altogether. I haven't decided that, but nonetheless, this will be a great place for me to temporarily install the water heater. Now, when it comes to installing this water heater, it's pretty straightforward other than having to have some kind of hole cut into your bus. But as far as plumbing and wiring, it really looks pretty easy. They give you a quick start guide right here that's taped to the water heater, but you also get a full manual as well. But for the most part, you have your gas inlet, you have your hot water out, you have your cold water in, and then you have a little bit of wiring, positive and negative for your main power, from your main power source, and then two blue wires go to the thermostat that is also provided by FOGATTI.
For anyone who is not familiar with how a tankless water heater works, it's actually pretty simple. Cold water enters the heater, and inside there's a flow sensor that detects when the water starts moving through the system. As soon as it senses flow, the heater ignites the propane burner and heats the water to the temperature you have set. When you shut the water off, the heater immediately detects that the flow has stopped and it shuts the burner down. It's only heating water when you are actively using it. That is different from a traditional water heater with a tank, which keeps a full tank of water hot all the time, even when you're not using any hot water. With a tankless system, you're heating water on demand instead of constantly maintaining a stored supply.
All right, so step one I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get the hole cut for the water heater. Now, since the water heater flush mounts to the outside, the rest of the water heater comes into the vehicle, and I want to make sure it is supported. So I just went into my shop, I grabbed a couple 2x4s, and that will end up supporting it. So I just want to make sure that wherever I start my hole for the water heater, it's at the same level as the 2x4s. So I'm just going to make a couple quick marks. Then I'm going to use the trim piece that they gave us as a template, and I'll go ahead and mark out exactly everything, and then I'll cut it with a jigsaw, and that should be fairly quick and easy. Alright guys, so I'm outside the bus and I ran into an issue that I didn't think about before I started cutting, and that is I didn't think about what was on the outside of the bus and if it would interfere with this bracket or plate that they want you to install. And so what ended up happening is the window itself is interfering and I can't actually get this bracket as low as I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just mark out and move this up higher, because again, it's a temporary install, it's not the end of the world, but this is something you're definitely going to want to think about if you have to cut a bigger hole or cut a hole. Make sure that on both sides that you don't have anything that's going to cause you a problem. Alright, so I've addressed the issue with my hole and I'm ready to go ahead and install the water heater in. I need to put sealant around the outer perimeter. I need to put this dressing piece up like that, and then this has got to slide in there. Now, one issue I have found is they do provide you some of this EPDM material as sealant to go around, so you would stick it on there and it's double-sided, so that way you could stick it and then be able to stick your side on. But mine only came with 2 pieces, and I did double check the manual and it does say that we should have enough to go around the entire perimeter. So a little quality control issue there, but not a big deal because I had in my shop some butyl tape, which, to be honest, if I was installing this permanently, this is what I would use anyways. You can get this at any hardware store and it's really good for sealing this type of stuff. So we're just going to use butyl tape. I'm going to seal all the way around all 4 edges, and then, like I said, we will place the outer ring and then go ahead and use the provided screws to screw the water heater into place. Alrighty folks, so we're going to be moving forward now. We do have the water heater fully installed. I have it supported on the inside here with some blocks, so we're good to go. Now this is where everything is going to be very determinant on your own application, but I'm going to go ahead and hook up my propane. Now for this application, again, since this is a very temporary install, I'm just going to have a 20-pound tank sitting here next to the water heater. And then I'm going to connect that up with a LP hose that is low pressure, which means it's 11 inches of water column. Now, when connecting a compression fitting, do not use tape or any type of sealant. It actually could mess up your connection. A compression fitting is meant to just go on dry. So I'm just going to screw this on, and then I'll use 2 wrenches to make sure that it is good and tight. And then I'll use some soap and water to make sure that I do have a good sealed connection. Alright, so now we're going to work on the wiring now that the propane is done. So wiring is going to be pretty straightforward. You have a positive and negative. That's going to go to your RV house battery. In my case, for my subscribers that are interested, I'm going to be using my Convolt in here to power this. And then you got two blue wires that are going to go to your thermostat. Now, these are not polarity sensitive. You can connect them any way. But of course, your positive negative are polarity sensitive. You need to hook the positive to the positive and the negative to the negative. Now, there's one thing I do want to point out at this point is, other than the screws and the EPDM, which we were actually short on, they don't provide you any other accessories. So all your plumbing parts, all your wiring, butt connectors, any fittings or anything else that you need to complete the install, you're going to have to source yourself. Alright, so we're going to move on to the plumbing part of the project. And again, like I said, you are going to have to supply all your own plumbing parts in order to get this going. And that also includes your water pump, which we'll get to in a minute. Now, what I'm going to work on right now is I'm just going to get my hot water line ran over to where I am going to have the shower inside the bus temporarily. I am going to use some PEX because I have this on hand. Now, if I was just doing this temporarily and I didn't have PEX on hand, I'd probably go a different route. But like I said, I have all of this, so I'm just going to use it, and I have all the necessary connectors as well. PEX is really great for doing this kind of stuff. It holds up really good to like freezing and unfreezing, and the connections are really easy to do if you have the proper tools, which aren't very expensive. Alright, so I've got this makeshift camp shower all set up. Now, like I said, this is not a product from FOGATTI. This is just something I bought on Amazon. Came with this little base to capture water, and then the shower system, so that way I was just able to connect that up to the roof. This will catch the water, and then it has a little drain pipe. There's already a hole in the floor from the old build that was in here that they were using to drain a sink. So I'm just taking advantage of that right now. So this will hopefully will work well. I'll be able to take my shower inside. All the water will drain out of the bus, and I won't end up with any water inside the bus. Alright folks, so we're getting excitingly close to getting this project wrapped up. All I need to do now is get the water inlet set up. What I've done is I've gone over to my other van and I've stole some parts off of my outside shower system I have for it. And what I have here is I have a little submersible pump that's on a switch. It's a 12-volt pump that I'm going to hook up using some quick neck hoses. These are all parts for my external shower, and I'm going to adapt it to the inlet here. What you see behind me is a big old garbage can, and I'm going to fill that with water and then just put the submersible pump in there and then turn it on, and that will feed water into the system. And then hopefully everything works out. We have hot water come out and we'll be able to take a shower. Like I said, this is all a temporary system. Once we have time to properly fix the roof and take care of a few other things, we will build this out really nice. But until then, it's going to be nice to have some showers in the meantime. So I'm going to get this all hooked up. All I'm going to do is I'm going to run a PEX pipe, a little short piece of PEX pipe, with a 1/2-inch connector onto this. I have a regular garden hose adapter to a PEX pipe. This is a leftover piece from an old shower system. That'll allow me to adapt to these hoses, and we'll be done. Alrighty folks, well, we got everything all hooked up, and I was able to run a test on the system, and at this point I'm really impressed. I got water from the spigot here at my shop, which according to the FOGATTI controller was only around 44 degrees. I set my temperature to 111 and I turned on the water heater, and really quickly it was able to start producing 104 to 106 degree water. And that's really good considering how cold the water coming in was, because I have used some other tankless water heaters that were meant for outdoor use. And sometimes if I'm pulling from an extremely cold source, it has a challenge getting the water up to a comfortable temperature. So that the fact that this was able to do that for me tells me that this is going to be not only great for me in the short term with this temporary setup, but it's going to be awesome for me once I finally do get the opportunity to build out the bus the way I want. Anyhow, if you guys are interested in checking out this tankless water heater from FOGATTI, check out my description below. If you have any comments or questions, please leave those down below as well. And we'll catch you guys again outside.